Hey everybody, this is Adina with DMV Experience, where we uplift, motivate, inspire, and encourage. We have a special presentation of the Artist Box with Maryland's very own activist and poet, Malcolm Jarell. So don't go away, we're going into the Artist Box. Welcome back to our special presentation of the Artist Box on DMV Experience. And let me introduce you to the one and only Mr. Malcolm Jarell. Hey, how are you? Good to see you.
Yeah, how you been?
I've been great.
Good.
Thank you for coming on our show.
Thanks for having me on.
You seem to be passionate about your art and about bringing awareness to our community.
Yeah.
Like, what got you started in that?
Oh, wow. It was a trumpet call, I would say, about 11 years ago. I was 11 years old, as a matter of fact. My cousin, who was writing poetry at the time, she read a poem to me. And I guess during that age, I was like, well, if you can do it, I can do it and do it even better.
Okay.
So I kind of took the challenge out of trying to one-up my cousin, and it turned to be something that I love. But beforehand, I really didn't have an interest in poetry. I thought it was boring. So I'm grateful to her even today for doing that, opening it up to me. So
Okay. I'm going to let you go ahead and do your thing in the
All right.
Artist Box.
Thank you. Good evening, everybody. Good evening. It's a pleasure to be here with you all tonight, traveling all the way from Waldorf, Maryland, about an hour's drive to here in the rain. I want to do something like how we do at my open mics. I host open mics every first and third Monday. That's my commercial plug. Every first and third Monday locally in Waldorf. And when I'm up, I like to sing a song. I learned some songs years ago in the church, so I like to sing this. It goes, take me to the water. Take me to the water. Take me to the water to be baptized. Take me to the water. Take me to the water. Take me to the water to be baptized. Now, the reason I sang that is because we all need some sort of baptism. You know, we know of the physical baptism, but there needs to be a baptism of the Spirit to be able to do whatever it is your heart desires to do. At some point, there needs to be a changing, evolution process that needs to start. And it happened for me. I've been writing poetry for about 11 years. It's been the love of my life for about 11 years. But only about 4 years ago did I take a serious turn with where my career would go, where my life would go. And it happened as I was departing the teenage wasteland, if you will. I had a friend, a very dear, close friend. She suddenly passed away. You know, all of a sudden, you know, I was with her one evening, we were laughing and carrying on and having fun, and then she was gone. And it took me down a very destructive path. I had gotten to a point where I really didn't know myself. I didn't hold on to the things that I had learned over the course of me writing, all this knowledge and wisdom that I had obtained. I left all of it behind when that very tragic incident happened. And it took me through a loop. It really did. And I went into a self-imposed exile, if you will, for about 3 years. And during that time, I pretty much downloaded all the knowledge and information I could gather. And just this year alone, I decided to get up out of that depression. I decided to rise up out of that and take back my career, take back my life, take back my joy. And now I'm here with you all tonight. And it's a very pleasure to be here. I'm very excited to come and share with you all the things that I've learned over these past few years. But to give you a foundation, I have to go back to the beginning of it all. In 2009, January of 2009, my dad and I were privileged enough to attend the inauguration of President Barack Obama, the first one. And there, I heard the inaugural poem, and in my standards, it didn't meet up to what I felt was right to be honoring this man. So I went home and I began to write my own. And I came out with a poem called The Dawn of Newness. And it goes, a mother whose struggles are seen through the eyes of her children strives in hope for a better day. Her cries are late in the night for fear that her children will learn of her sorrows. A father whose driving force is to rise to the top simply by rising to the occasion is trapped by the bars of his own mistakes. His need for a better day is a desperate one, yet the attempt is limited. The child, whose life is dictated by those of his parents, also wishes for a better day. Not for himself, but for his parents, because he sees their pain and he knows their tears. The man, who knows only what his job training taught him, wanders along the dark road of homelessness, hiding in the shadows of his ignorance. The student, who for years studied long and hard late into the night, has the key to their future success, but the funds to open it are limited beyond measure. They smile today because they can see their better day on the horizon, even with their dream deferred. These, the mother, the father, the child, the man, the student, and even more of them wish for a better day, a tomorrow where the dream can be fulfilled, today where the dream still lives. The dawn of a new hope is their only desire, the dream of a world where the basic steps of change were offered. Still, our eyes are closed. No alarm of our new day, but morning comes quickly. No longer will we have to hide in the darkness of night with our faces masked by fear, embarrassment, defeat, ignorance, or shame. And now, at the dawn of newness, we can open our eyes to see, open our mouths and scream, loudly scream, tell the world that we've arrived and risen from our slumber, and that on the break of this glorious morning, the dream has entered reality. Welcome to your new day. Thank you. Now, that was in 2009. To bring you up to speed, these past few years I've been doing a lot of research. I've been going back to the old poets, primarily the African American poets of the 19th and 20th centuries. I did some research on Dr. Maya Angelou. I've been researching her for years. When I began writing, she was the first book that I picked up, her and Nikki Giovanni. So I've been studying these two for many years now, and she wrote a poem in conjunction with a poem by Paul Laurence Dunbar, who was an African-American poet, writing in 1892. He wrote a poem called We Wear the Mask. Now, to give you a better understanding at why this poem is dear to me, for several years now, we've seen the upsurge of brutality in our communities. We've seen the upsurge of killing, vicious killing of young black men and young black females who don't deserve their lives cut short, but for whatever reason, this plague has fallen upon us. And it seems to me that those who are promoting the movements, I won't give a name, but those who are promoting these mass movements of young people, they kind of miss the mark of where we stand, of where we stand now, where we've come from, where we stand now, where we need to go. And I take it very seriously to study where our people have come from, to study the culture, to study the poetry, to study all of the words and literature that they left for us. Because it is our research tools. It is what we need to learn how to arise from what we're in now. And I look out on my community and I see a lot more of the black on black crimes, if you will, the gang violence, the vicious killings of young blacks by other young blacks who have these guns, who have these weapons, and they aim to kill their brothers and sisters very ignorantly. Very ignorantly. They aim to do this. And this is an issue that isn't talked about on CNN. You will not see young black people protesting against their brothers and sisters for the killings that are going on. You won't see this. What you will see is these young people, some of them go to the rallies, go to the protests, go to the meetings, and they'll stand with their picket signs. They'll chant right alongside the ones who want the change. Then afterward, they'll go back into those same streets and put a gun to their brother's head for whatever it is he has on his feet or whatever it is he has on his back. So I believe we are masked. We are masked and don't even know it. We hide behind these masks. We hide behind these masks of ignorance and fear and embarrassment and shame. We hide behind these because we don't know who we are. It's an identity crisis. So to give you an understanding at why I love this poem so much is because in 1892, 250 years or 150 years before I was born, in 1992, Paul Laurence Dunbar wrote this. And he was very, very true. He said, "We wear the mask that grins and lies. It shades our cheeks and hides our eyes. This debt we pay to human guile. With torn and bleeding hearts, we smile and mouth with myriad subtleties. Why should the world be overwise in counting all our tears and sighs? Nay, let them only see us while we wear the mask. We smile, but oh, dear Lord, our souls to thee from tortured souls arise. And we sing, hey, we sing. But the clay is vile beneath our feet, and long the mile. But let the world think otherwise. We wear the mask." Now, Maya Angelou, Dr. Maya Angelou, she followed behind Paul Laurence Dunbar with a poem called A Song for the Old Ones, which goes, "My fathers sit on benches. Their flesh count every plank. The slats leave dents of darkness deep in their withered flank, and they nod like broken candles, all waxed and burnt profound. They say, it was our submission that made your world go round. There in those pleated faces, I see the auction block, the chains and slavery's coffles, the whip and lash and stock, my father speaking voices that shred my fact and sound. They say, but child, it was our submission that made your world go round. They've laughed to shield their crying and shuffled through their dreams and stepped and fetched the country to write the blues and screams. I understand their meaning. It could and did derive from living on the ledge of death. They kept my race alive by wearing the mask." Thank you. Now, I myself being a poet, I have these poems to lean on. Being a young black person, I have these poems to lean on to help me to understand that it is not my brother who is the enemy. It is no person of color who is the enemy. If we were to get into a political debate on the matter, I would say that everyone knows the power structure has always been one color, if you wanted to talk color, and the oppressed people have always been another color. So now in this society that we're in this movement that we have, how can we make this a race issue when we aren't ourselves within our own communities asking the questions that need to be asked? If a murder happens and a detective knocks on your door, what will you say? Will you hide in fear? Will you cower like the other people and say, oh, well, I ain't snitching. I'm not going to be a snitch. I don't have nothing to say. And then when you close the door, you tell your company everything that you did see. Now, I have an issue with that. Because how can we move the people forward? How can we fight for justice if we won't even speak up for our own people? We won't even speak up for the ills and the wiles that we commit on ourselves, the destruction that we pass from ourselves to ourselves. We won't speak on it. We won't. And I have an issue with that. How can we say that these people are killing us in mass numbers when we kill each other even more every day. There's not one police officer that wakes up in the morning with a vicious motive to go out and kill every young black he sees. Now, yes, we do have some officers who have a color problem. But how much is that problem applied to us, to our own people? We have that problem. Stokely Carmichael, who was a militant leader in the 1960s, he came out of Dr. Martin Luther King. He was the regional leader for SNCC, which was the Student Nonviolent Coordinating Committee. And they came out of Dr. King's philosophy, but they broke away from it, understanding that nonviolence is good, a passive movement is good, but what we need is more aggression, more seriousness from our people. Now, there were some that took it far, but he said that we have an issue of anti-racist racism. We will go along with all of the peaceful protests, all of the marches. We will go along with all of these things, but yet we will hate the one that lives next door to us for what they have. The one that looks like us. We will hate them for what they have. Now, why don't we have it? Because of the hate. Now, if we were to address this issue, if we were to see true justice, we would have to address those issues within our own communities. I wrote a poem for a young black man who is a victim of this issue. He's not what everyone would think he is. He's not a thug. He's not a gangster. He's not a hood. He's not a robber. He's just a young black man trying to make it. And he has an issue now with what the media says about him. So he's walking along one day, and he sees someone stare very disdainfully at him. And he says, "The knot that's in my throat says I should be crying. It chokes so bad, you would think I would die. While searching for peace amidst this despair, you think I'd gone mad, screaming at the air. Some believe I'm wrong, still I chase my dreams. None of what they think is ever what it seems. When folks see me coming, they glare with such disdain. I know they know no better, so I smile to mask the pain. For those who war after me, sorrow will be their gain. If tomorrow's bulletin reads another young black and slain." Thank you. Now, this young man, he knows that his enemy isn't the one with the badge. His enemy isn't the one with the gun in his hand that looks like him. His enemy is the mindset of the people. His enemy is that bitter, vicious mindset that's been handed down to us through many generations. And we have to ask ourselves now, what must we do to change this? What must we do to reverse this stigma? Now, I can't speak for the entire race, but I can only speak for myself. And what I have to say is that I won't look at my brother on the street. I won't look at my sister on the street as if they're anything beneath me. Any person of color, I will never look at anyone as if they're beneath me. Because if we all work and cooperate together, we can make some things happen. We can bring the change that our forefathers started to do. We can move the race forward. I wrote a book, my first book actually, in 2011 called Wake Up and Think. Now, I can tell you now that particular book is very much beyond its time. In 2011, I didn't know what I was getting myself into. I just knew that I had this journal full of poetry, and it would make sense to publish a book. So I had a friend of mine help me, sit down and brainstorm. We thought about some titles, and I said, well, a lot of this is geared around, thoughts and my thoughts and the collective thoughts. So what can we do? What can we do to figure out this name? So she proposed, Wake Up and Think. If the people are asleep, let's wake them up. So in 2011, I wrote that book. And in that, there's a poem that's called The Times. The Times. and I go, they say the thinkers are crazy and the dreamers have lost their minds. I say we know truth and are aware of the times. Open minds seek solution amidst chaos while ignorance enjoys company. One seeking peace creates peaceful situations, while one seeking drama diggeth a pit and shall fall in it. Foolishness brings the world to its knees. Who would dare to be free? And that's a question that I ask often now. Who would dare to be free? We have physical freedom. We can walk along and do whatever it is we want to do. But in our minds, we're bound with the idea that if I don't have, I should go and take. And who's the most convenient person to take from? My next door neighbor, the brother in the community, the sister in the street. I had a cousin, and I tell you, I don't care who gets mad about this. I had a cousin who tried to, make some remarks to a young lady. He tried to ask her out on a date. Let's say that. He tried to ask her on a date, and she rejected him. So in turn, he beat her up physically. It turned into an altercation. It led to an upsurge of some sort of petty gang-related violence within my own neighborhood. And these are young children, 14, 15, 16 years old. That one cousin of mine who did that to that young lady, he is now facing a plethora of serious charges, violent charges. And he is in jail right now at the age of 18 because of his mindset. And if we can't stop these mindsets, if we can't turn these mindsets around, that foolishness will bring the world as we know it to our knees because of the way that these children act, what they want to do. Now, I wrote a poem that talks about the history of our people. And it goes candidly into how history repeats itself, because we don't want to make our own history. We don't want to stop the destructive ball rolling. We want to keep it rolling and see the same history begin to repeat itself. Yes, the police have been killing black people for years. And it's been on the news for years. But have black people stopped letting themselves be killed by the police? That's the question that we have to ask. We have these children out here who want to be victims, or they play victim, but why? Why is your child out in the street with a BB gun, waving it around? When I was younger, I knew people who would go and buy BB guns and shave off the plastic part to make it look real. So these things aren't foreign to me. Why is that 12-year-old out there with a BB gun in the first place? Because I know I was 12 years old with a slingshot in my neighborhood. So why was that young man out at 11 o'clock, not even old enough to buy a cigarillo or a blunt or what have you? Why was he out there buying them in the first place? What did he say to that officer that led to that altercation in anyway? These are questions that we have to ask. As hard as it is to fathom that our children could begin to victimize their own selves by not being where they should be, by not doing what they should do, by not following the instructions that we give them, if you give them any instruction, what can we do? So I wrote this poem, History Yet Speaks. Gather your young here to the foot of my mountain, and I will show you those who have climbed before you. Mothers for long have cried heavy and burdensome tears, seeing their daughters and sons being deprived of their years. Their hearts are empty, devoid and increasingly sorrowful. The dirge they sang springs up from ancestral souls, from mothers who mourned in the days of old. History yet speaks. Fix your attention on the silent war, an ever-raging battle, the genocide of our youth. Where justice has failed, a new struggle, fueled by unrest, quickly begins. Rioters charge forth, their hands rolled in fists, seeking to stake their claim, searching for one to blame. Others trudge on ignorant, blind and not listening, as hatred deepens and the bullets continue whistling. History yet speaks. I have questioned your system and have challenged your courage repeatedly. I have seen you cower in fear of moving forward. I have reminded you of horrors not long departed. Even the trees, though innocent, cry out for the helpless ornaments left hanging and swaying from their heightened branches. Voices from Selma and Birmingham, from the deep, dark, muddy banks of the Mississippi, echo to you now, today, pleading you to remember and forget not their names. And many names there were, martyred and slain, carrying the banner, though bloodied and stained, further beyond that racist shore. History yet speaks. And what history is speaking for us now today is that it's not a matter of color concerning the racist issue. It's a matter of a mindset. It can't be white against black anymore because it's too much black against black. It's too much Asian against Asian. It's too much Hispanic against Hispanic. It's too much white against white. If we would take back the color, remove it out of our image, out of our sight, and look at each other as people and what we have to do, first to repent of all the ills, all the sins we committed to one another and on one another, and learn the meaning of brotherhood, learn the meaning of friendship, and getting along and gathering together. There's been too many leaders who have come along and laid their lives on the line for us to understand this philosophy, to understand and internalize this principle that all of us at some point can be bound by anything, spiritually, physically, emotionally, mentally. And in order to be free from that, we have to have faith. First off, faith in God, that we can be delivered from this, and faith in ourselves that we can help each other, one another, move forward from it. Thank you.
DMV, District of Columbia, Maryland, Virginia, nobody does it better. This is Adina, and I want to thank you for joining us on this special presentation of the Artist Box featuring Malcolm Jarell on the DMV Experience. Until next time.